Lizzie had always been a determined and independent woman. At 32, she had a promising career as an architect in a large firm in the city. Her brown hair framed a delicate face with expressive green eyes that reflected her vibrant personality. Despite her professional success, Lizzie longed for something more in her personal life. 6 months ago, her fiancé Austin had left for a work assignment abroad. Tall, broad-shouldered, and with a captivating smile, Austin was an executive at a multinational company. The couple had been together for 3 years, and before leaving, he had proposed to her. Lizzie accepted without hesitation, dreaming of the future they would build together. The first few months of separation were difficult, but Lizzie remained optimistic. They exchanged daily messages and made video calls whenever possible. However, as time went by, the communication started to decrease. Austin claimed to be very busy, the calls became more infrequent and the messages shorter. Even so, Lizzie tried to understand after all. She knew long-distance relationships were challenging. Finally, after 6 long months, the day of Austin's return had arrived. Lizzie woke up early, as excited as a child on Christmas morning. She decided to surprise her fiancé, ignoring his request not to pick him up at the airport. She spent hours getting ready, carefully choosing every detail. She wore the blue dress that Austin loved so much, an elegant model that accentuated her curves. She went to the salon, where she got an elaborate hairstyle and makeup that highlighted her green eyes. She bought his favorite chocolates and some colorful balloons to give a festive touch to the reception. Lizzie's heart was racing as she anxiously waited at the arrival gate. Her eyes scanned every face that passed, looking for Austin. Finally, she spotted him coming through the gate. A broad smile lit up her face, but it soon faded. Austin was not alone. Beside him, a woman with long blonde hair walked arm in arm with him. The two were chatting animatedly, exchanging looks filled with complicity. Lizzie felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She tried to hide, but the colorful balloons betrayed her, catching Austin's attention. Their eyes met, and Lizzie saw the shock and guilt in his eyes. "Lizzie, what?" "I can explain," Austin stammered, but she no longer listened. With tears welling up in her eyes, Lizzie let go of the balloons which floated up to the ceiling of the airport and ran away from that painful scene. Her heart felt as if it had been ripped from her chest, leaving only a painful void. Later that same day, Austin went to Lizzie's house. She received him in silence, her eyes swollen from crying so much. He explained that he had fallen in love with another woman during the trip, that he hadn't planned for it to happen, but that he couldn't deny his feelings. He wanted to tell her in person, he said, out of respect for what they had shared together. Lizzie listened to everything without saying a word. When Austin finished, she simply asked him to leave. She spent the following days in a state of stupor, alternating between crying fits and moments of anger. She felt betrayed, humiliated, and above all, alone. It was then that she remembered her grandfather's cabin in the mountains, a place where she spent happy summers in her childhood, far from the hustle and bustle of the city. She decided to take time off from work and spend a few weeks there, hoping that the tranquility of the mountains could help heal her broken heart. Her grandfather warned her that it had been years since anyone had been to the cabin, and that it would probably need a good cleaning. Lizzie didn't mind. In fact, the idea of having something to occupy herself with seemed comforting. After a few hours of travelling, Lizzie finally arrived at the cabin. The place was more deteriorated than she had imagined. The outer paint was peeling, the windows were clouded with dirt, and cobwebs adorned the corners. The interior wasn't much better, with a thick layer of dust covering the furniture. Despite the state of the cabin, Lizzie felt a wave of nostalgia as she entered. Memories of happy summers spent there with her family flooded her mind. Determined to make the place livable, she rolled up her sleeves and set to work. She spent the rest of the day cleaning, sweeping, and organizing. She managed to get one of the bedrooms, the kitchen, and the living room in usable condition. At night, exhausted but satisfied with the progress, she lit the fireplace and settled onto the old sofa with a glass of wine. As the flames danced in the fireplace, Lizzie allowed herself to cry again. Silent tears ran down her face as she thought of Austin and the future they had planned together. The crackling of burning wood was the only sound in the cabin, accompanying the whirlwind of emotions that enveloped her. She was so absorbed in her grief that at first, she didn't notice the subtle movement outside. But then, out of the corner of her eye, something moved. A figure passed quickly by the window, an indistinct shadow blending into the darkness outside. Her heart skipped a beat. Lizzie blinked a few times, trying to discern if she had really seen something or if her tired mind was playing tricks on her. The wind blew strongly, making the trees sway in an almost ghostly manner, their thin branches casting elongated shadows on the glass. Taking a deep breath, Lizzie tried to calm herself. "It must have been just the wind," she murmured to herself, hugging her own body as if the gesture could protect her. But then, another movement. Quicker this time. A dark silhouette right there, by the window. Her blood ran cold. Her breath caught in her throat as she tried to gather the courage to stand up. The feeling of being watched sent a shiver through every inch of her skin. Lizzie fixed her eyes on the window, her fingers tightly clutching the blanket that wrapped around her. Whatever was out there, it wasn't moving anymore. Only the trees continued their wild ballet under the howling wind. Lizzie ended up falling asleep on the couch. The next day she woke up with the first rays of sunlight coming through the windows. She wasn't hungry, but she forced herself to prepare breakfast anyway. Eggs, bread, and jams. From the kitchen window it was possible to see the silver lake with the sun reflecting on its surface. It was a beautiful scene, and how nice it would be to share it with someone special. But instead, Lizzie was there accompanied by the pain of betrayal. That night, the storm raged furiously over the mountains, as if nature itself were in fury. The wind howled with a frightening force, lashing the trees so violently that their branches bent almost to the point of breaking. The rain pelted the cabin roof, creating an irregular rhythm of thuds, while thunder rumbled in the distance, shaking the air like the roar of a colossal beast. Lizzie was curled up on the sofa, clutching the blanket around her body as if she could protect herself from the chaos outside. The fireplace crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the walls, but the warmth of the fire couldn't dispel the icy tension that had settled in her chest. Suddenly, thunder exploded in the sky, so loud and close that it made the windows shake. At the exact moment the lightning briefly lit up the cabin, a sharp, strong sound echoed through the room. "Knock! Knock! Knock!" Lizzie froze. The knocks on the door were so abrupt that they seemed to merge with the thunder, as if the storm had brought with it something or someone. Her heart raced, pounding frantically in her ears. Who could be out there, in the middle of such a brutal storm? Holding her breath, she fixed her eyes on the door, hoping that the wind had been the culprit. But then the knocks came again, stronger, more insistent. Knock, knock, knock. Lizzie pulled the blanket tighter around her body, feeling a chill run down her spine. She was not alone on that stormy night. "Who's there?" asked Lizzie, her voice coming out shaky, almost drowned by the roar of the wind and the relentless patter of the rain against the roof. Her heart was pounding, each beat echoing in her ears, as if warning her not to approach the door. "Lizzie, open the door. It's me, Lewis." Upon hearing the name, Lizzie stood still for a moment. Lewis. The word reverberated in her mind like a distant echo, bringing with it a flood of dormant memories. Lewis. The boy with the mischievous smile and bright blue eyes who always challenged her to climb higher in the trees. The inseparable friend from the summers of her childhood, the one with whom she shared secrets by the lakeside and who always protected her when they had to run from adult lectures, the first to hold her hand in a different way. Their first kiss. Her heart tightened in her chest. How long had it been since she last saw Lewis? Time and life had separated them, But there, on that stormy night, his name came back to her like a whisper from the past. Still hesitant, Lizzie unlocked the door and opened it slowly. A gust of cold wind invaded the cabin, messing up her hair and making the flames in the fireplace flicker. Outside, completely drenched, stood Lewis. Tall, with broad shoulders and a posture marked by time, but with the same blue eyes that seemed to light up even the darkest night. His breathing was heavy, and the rain dripped from his dishevelled hair, trickling down his soaked jacket. Like Lizzie, Lewis's family owned a cabin in those mountains, and as children, they shared summer vacations in that place. "Lewis," Lizzie whispered, now without a doubt. He smiled slightly, despite the cold and the storm surrounding him. "Hi, Lizzie. What are you doing here? How did you know I was here?" she asked, her voice filled with disbelief and curiosity, as she handed him the towels to dry himself. Lewis took one of them, rubbing his wet hair before responding, still with that mischievous gleam in his eyes, the same gleam she knew so well. Lewis explained that he was spending a few days at his family's cabin and had noticed the lights on the night before. He went down to check if it was an intruder and recognized her. That night, with the storm, part of his cabin's roof had given way, and he came to seek shelter. "So it was you that I saw through the window last night. You almost scared me to death," said Lizzie, recalling the figure she had seen. "Sorry about that. I didn't mean to scare you, I was just checking to make sure it wasn't some intruder," Lewis explained, appearing genuinely apologetic. Lizzie offered Lewis some dry clothes that belonged to her grandfather. While he changed, she prepared a hot meal for both of them. Sitting at the kitchen table with the sound of rain in the background, the two began reminiscing about the old times. They laughed as they recalled the pranks they used to pull together, the firefly hunts in the summers, and of course, the awkward first kiss they shared. Lewis mentioned that his family planned to sell the old cabin, but he had decided to renovate it and live there for a while. "I've just gone through a breakup," he confessed. "Since my job is flexible, I thought spending some time here renovating the cabin might help me clear my head." Lizzie felt a pang of empathy. She was also there to mend a broken heart, although she didn't go into details about Austin. The conversation flowed naturally between them, as if the years apart had never happened. When they finally decided to sleep, it was already early morning. Lizzie prepared the sofa for Lewis to spend the night there. Lewis slept on the living room sofa, and Lizzie took a while to fall asleep, still processing the whirlwind of emotions from that night. His presence there, after so many years, stirred feelings in her that went beyond nostalgia. There was comfort, familiarity, and something more, something she dared not name yet. When she woke up the next morning, she found the sofa empty. The blanket she had left for Lewis was carefully folded over the back, but he was no longer there. A slight tightness gripped Lizzie's chest. For a moment, the silence of the cabin seemed deeper, more solitary. Without thinking twice, she grabbed a coat and went out to look for him. The morning air was fresh, laden with the scent of wet earth after the storm. Lizzie followed the trail leading to Lewis's cabin, her steps hesitant at first, but soon marked by the rhythm of memories. Each tree, each bend in the path, brought echoes of her childhood. She and Lewis running side by side, challenging each other to be the first to arrive, laughing until they were out of breath. It was then that she spotted the tree. That tree. Her heart raced as she recognized the initials carved into the bark, worn by time. There, years ago, she and Lewis had exchanged their first kiss. An innocent moment, yet full of meaning. Lizzie gently ran her fingers over the engraved letters, feeling an unexpected warmth grow inside her. Taking a deep breath, she resumed the path to his cabin. When she arrived, she saw Lewis on the roof, focused on repairing the storm damage. He seemed unaware of her presence, engrossed in his work, but even from a distance, Lizzie noticed the determined expression on his face. "Lewis!" she called, her voice a bit louder to overcome the cold morning wind. He turned around and upon seeing her broke into a smile that made Lizzie feel something strange yet comforting at the same time, as if time had never passed. "Good morning, sleepyhead. I thought you were going to sleep until noon," he joked, winking at her. Lizzie rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling. "I decided to come and help. It seems like you have a lot of work here." And without waiting for an answer, she began hanging clothes and furniture outside to dry under the weak morning sun. In the days that followed, the two worked side by side to restore Lewis's cabin. They hammered boards, fixed furniture, and cleared debris. Each task was a welcome distraction for Lizzie, who lost herself in the physical effort and Lewis's company. He was still the funny boy she remembered, always ready with a joke or witty comment that made her laugh, even in the most tiring moments. While they worked, he challenged her to carry more wood than she could manage, just to see her pretend to be indignant and laugh right after. But it was the nights that made something inside Lizzie transform. Sitting in front of the fireplace or under the stars with a campfire crackling between them, conversations flowed easily. They talked about childhood summers, the dreams they had, the disappointments they encountered along the way. And Lizzie began to realize. Time may have passed, life may have driven them apart, but there was something between her and Lewis that had never been lost. Something that perhaps was just waiting for the right moment to be reborn. As the days went by, Lizzie began to notice small details about Lewis that she hadn't seen before. The way his eyes lit up when he smiled, the kindness with which he treated the wild animals that appeared near the cabin, the dedication he showed in every task he performed. One afternoon, while they were painting the porch of Lewis's cabin, Lizzie found herself admiring his profile against the sunset. She felt warmth rise to her face and quickly looked away, confused by her own body's reaction. The weeks flew by, and soon it was time for Lizzie to return to the city. On the morning of her departure, she woke up with a heavy heart. The thought of leaving the mountains, the peace she had found there, and especially Lewis's company saddened her more than she had expected. She decided to go to Lewis's cabin to say goodbye, but on the way she found him coming towards her. "I was on my way to your cabin to say goodbye to you," Lewis said, a note of melancholy in his voice. They looked at each other in silence, as if trying to memorize every detail of one another. That was when Lizzie realized where they were, exactly the same place where years ago they had shared their first kiss. The same tree was still there with their initials carved into the trunk. As if pulled by an invisible force, Lizzie and Lewis drew closer. Their lips met in a gentle kiss, full of tenderness. When they parted, both had tears in their eyes. "Stay," Lewis requested, his voice almost a whisper. Lizzie felt her heart break again, but this time in a different way. She knew she needed to return, face her life in the city, her job. With one last look, she walked away, leaving Lewis standing by the memory tree. Back in the city, Lizzie resumed her routine. She immersed herself in work, trying not to think about the weeks she had spent in the mountains. But at night, when silence took over her apartment, she found herself remembering the moments with Lewis. She realized that the pain of Austin's betrayal no longer hurt as much. In its place, a new feeling was growing, something she didn't expect to feel again so soon. She was in love with Lewis, the boy who had been her first love and who now, as a man, had won her heart once again. A week went by, then two. Lizzie struggled internally, torn between the safety of her life in the city and the desire to return to the mountains, to Lewis. On a Saturday, she made an impulsive decision. She threw some clothes into a suitcase, got into her car and drove. She arrived at Lewis's cabin. He was on the roof making some repairs when he saw her. Lewis rushed down, almost stumbling in his haste to reach her. Without words, they just hugged. When they finally pulled apart, Lizzie looked into Lewis's eyes and said, "I think our story deserves a few more chapters." Lewis smiled, that smile that made Lizzie's heart melt. "Actually," he replied, "I think we're just beginning our story." Lizzie knew she had found not only her place but also her peace. She realized that life doesn't always follow the plans we make, and that sometimes the most painful detours are the ones that lead us exactly where we should be. The future was still a mystery, but now she understood that true happiness wasn't in having all the answers, but in walking alongside someone who chose to share the journey day after day. She and Lewis would face the challenges together, not because fate had forced them to, but because they both chose to stand by each other. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.